Good morning, all, and welcome to today's webinar session. What's new at FormAssembly, Secure Data Collection and Integrations. My name's Josh Straley. If you've attended a FormAssembly webinar before, I should look familiar. Welcome back. This is our first webinar of the new year. I won't say the Happy New Year to you, though, because there's a statute of limitations on that. Before we get started today, just some quick housekeeping. I've already got some questions in the chat about this. First things first, you will receive a recording of today's session to the email address that you used to register for the session sometime in the next 24 hours. Typically, we get it out tomorrow. I had a question I hadn't gotten before, and that was whether we would have live captions for today's broadcast. Unfortunately, my webinar platform does not support live captions, but that recording that you'll receive tomorrow will have captions embedded. So look for that. You'll have a full transcript below the recording as well if you'd like to search through the webinar content, but that'll give you a chance to see the content in a more accessible format. I want to draw your attention around the screen that you're seeing the webinar in today. You can resize and move any of the windows and the tiles that you're seeing. If you feel like you've accidentally closed something, use the toolbar at the bottom of the screen to open and close any of the modules that you want to see or don't want to see. We will be having a live Q&A at the end of the session. So if you have questions or need to communicate with me during today's session, please use the Q&A box that you see on the left side of your screen. That's the best way to get in front of me during the webinar. I'll answer your questions as soon as I can. If they're about the content that we're seeing, I might have them wait and answer during the live Q&A when our presenters are available to speak to your questions. Last but not least, I have some resources over on the right-hand side of your screen today. Those are links out to various landing pages, help documentation, and a pre-registration page for our upcoming user conference this year. And speaking of, I wanted to ask you attending today's call, did you attend our user conference last year? We had a 2024 user conference in March of 2024. It was a great two-day virtual event full of sessions. I'd love to know how many of you attended that event. You can use the options on your screen. Just click on the answer that fits your answer the best. I gave you several options. I'd love to just know how many user conference attendees we had because I've got some exciting news for you, which I've already kind of given away. I'm going to give you 10 more seconds to answer. I just love to see these live polls come in. And I got about half of you answered. Let's go ahead and see what the breakdown is. Ooh, we have a lot of people unaware of the FormAssembly User Conference. Well, I have some great news. This year's user conference is FormFest 2025, and pre-registration is live now in the resource center of this webinar. So if you would like to be among the first to be able to sign up for sessions and be entered in for a chance to win some exclusive swag, some Beats headphones, you can actually run over to the landing page in the resources center here and pre-register. I think it's just going to ask for your name and email address, and that way we're going to be able to get you the real registration page when it goes live next month. The FormAssembly User Conference, since most of you are not familiar, is 2 days of virtual sessions, very similar to this webinar, filled with FormAssembly experts, employees from across the company, support staff, security staff, product staff, engineering, people from every corner of the company leading sessions in, all with the focus of making sure that you know how to use FormAssembly better and use it to, digitize and automate the processes at your organization. You're also going to hear from FormAssembly partners and customers about how they use the platform in their various industries. It is a great event, and it is a smorgasbord of learning. We will have intro sessions if you're not familiar with FormAssembly. We will have expert-led sessions that'll show you how to integrate your forms with some more recently released Salesforce architecture. There is some incredible stuff. I cannot wait to get the registrations out for you. I know that since you are here, I just got a question about this. Jessica, there is no cost to attend the conference, so you can feel free to register. Also, when the registration pages come out for the individual sessions, if they are not in your time zone, or if you have some conflicts, which does happen, you can feel free to register and you will receive the recording just as you will the recording of this webinar. So we make it as accessible for FormAssembly users as we can. And if you're not a FormAssembly user today, but you still want to learn, I encourage you to attend the sessions. We'll have a keynote address from some of our executive team. They'll give you an idea of what FormAssembly's mission and promise is to our users. It's a great way to get to know the company. So basically, if you're interested at all, I encourage you to pre-register, and we'll get you more information as February moves on. Forgive me, Matt. You're absolutely right. And you know, I don't think you'll see dates for the user conference this year on the landing page. Those details might be there. They should be actually, but it's going to be April 2nd and 3rd. And as you can tell, I do monitor the Q&A live. So again, if you have any questions during today's session, let me know. All right. Speaking of the session, what we're going to cover today is all of the updates that we saw in FormAssembly last year. The goal of this session is to make sure that if you haven't checked in with our software recently, if you've been busy and heads down on your own projects for the last 6 months, that you get a chance to catch up with us and all of the new features and functionality that we've brought to the platform since 2024. Because I still can't believe we're in 2025. Today, we're going to look at some of our security updates. We added some new user login security settings to SSO, SAML, and MFA. We're going to review those very quickly. We're also going to talk about a couple compliance updates for FormAssembly. I won't bury the lead too long there. We'll get to those in just a second. We're also going to look at some new connectors today. Our file upload connectors that allow you to collect files through your form and workflows and store them in different services of your choice. We've got a plethora of them now, and I can't wait to show you those. And we're going to look at our Webhook connector and how you can use that in your workflows to build essentially custom integrations. This is something we released in the back half of 2024, and it is some very exciting stuff. We're going to take a look at a live demo today on how you can build your connectors with that. But before we get there, I'd love to introduce our co-host panelists today. I am joined by my colleagues Joelle Swanson and Tom Gooding. Folks, say hi to the audience and introduce yourselves.
Hello, everyone. I'm Joelle Swanson. I'm the product trainer here at FormAssembly, and I just love to get the chance to talk to our customers and teach them even more about what makes FormAssembly great.
And hi, everyone. Thank you for attending. I'm Tom Goodin, Solutions Engineer here at FormAssembly. And so hopefully look forward to showing you some of the new stuff we have and make it entertaining and informative.
Absolutely. I can't wait to see how entertaining you make it, Tom. We'll do a little song and dance for you. Before we get into the actual presentation, gang, one more poll for you. Sorry to hold us up. Out of all of those updates I just listed, what are you most interested in seeing today? We'd love to get an idea of what brought you to the webinar and what we should perhaps spend a little bit more time on. And of course, you know, where your questions are going to be. With this poll, you can, again, just click the answer that you, like best encapsulates what you're excited for. I do realize this is a single choice poll, so just choose the thing you're most excited for. And I'll give you like 15 seconds. Joelle, I love to do this when we do these polls. What do you think the answer is going to be, the most common answer?
I think it's going to be the Webhook connector, just simply because there's so much you can do with it, and it's just one of those things that it's just crazy. And I'm excited to see what Tom's going to do with it today.
Yeah, it is pretty powerful. All right, we've got a ton of poll responses. Let's reveal the results. Oh, more people interested in our file storage connectors. Well, that is fantastic. Joelle's got a great demo for you a little bit later. Wow, look at that. But hey, Webhook connector strong. Well, not second. Shoot, we've got some security fans in the office. All right, well, let's not hold the people up anymore. I'm going to send our presenters away for just a second, and I'm going to handle our security updates. So as I mentioned, last year saw some changes to our MFA and SSO features that made them a bit more accessible. MFA was released for all plans that have multiple users. So that includes Essentials, Team, Enterprise, and Government plans. If you have multiple users on your FormAssembly platform, you can use multi-factor authentication for for them when they log in. So that gives you an opportunity to use, like some of your security applications, like Google has an app where you can do like a code to enter. So you have some choice in what they use to authenticate into your FormAssembly system, just locking down your platform a bit more and giving you that security and compliance stance that many organizations require now. Second, we made some changes late last year to our single sign-on feature, giving admins on your account more control over that feature, the ability to enforce SSO across your organization, not allowing people to auth in with FormAssembly credentials. All of those new configuration options for SSO are limited to people with admin capabilities, and it's located on the admin page. I did include forgive me, my Slack was going off. Close that. I did include links to documentation for both setup for MFA and SSO configuration in the Resources Center today. So if you're interested, if you're on a multi-user plan and you're interested on checking out those configuration options, making your platform a bit more secure for your users, please take a look at that documentation. It's going to take you step by step through how to set that up. It's going to give you all the details you need. I'm avoiding demonstrating that live today because, of course, that is some sensitive configuration options inside of your platform. If you need help with that, please reach out to our support team. But I think the documentation is going to show you pretty well how to handle those features. The second thing I'd like to talk about today is some updates to our compliance stances. Last year, pretty early last year in March, FormAssembly achieved Level 2 certification in FedRAMP. This is the state of Texas's compliance standard for cloud software. This applies mostly to government agencies and universities, state universities, but there are contractors and independent schools that like to use or are required to use software that is FedRAMP certified. And we have a lot of customers in Texas, in the state of Texas. We're very happy to be able to support their compliance needs with this certification. Similarly, we renewed our FedRAMP-ready certification to allow FormAssembly to be used to support U.S. federal data collection standards. I mention that because, of course, I don't have a ton of federal agencies on the call today, but for every FormAssembly user, the achievement of these certifications means that our internal compliance processes are up-leveled and held to the highest standards. So really every plan benefits from this. But if you require these certifications to use FormAssembly at your organizations, I do encourage you to reach out to either our support team or our sales staff to make sure you're on the right plan and you have these certifications in your account. You can also visit security.formassembly.com to view any of our certification documentation. That's a great place to send your CISOs or any security staff that you may have interested in FormAssembly. Next but not least, nope, that's not how it goes. Next, there's at least 2 more sections of this webinar, so sorry. This is the most exciting portion, at least according to our poll just now for our attendees today. Our file storage connectors. 2024 saw a major increase in your options in storing files collected through your forms and workflows. Box and Dropbox joined Google Sheets, Microsoft SharePoint, and I'm so sorry, Google Drive as options for you to bring connectors to your account to allow you to plug files into these common storage services. Joelle's going to show you a demonstration today on how they operate. We're going to stick to just one connector, but you're going to be able to see how all of these connectors function. You can choose the connector that works best for you. But I'm stepping on Joelle's toes. Joelle, take it away.
Thank you, Josh. Yes. Okay, so give me just a second to share my screen here. And then I can set the stage of what we're going to do today for our demo. So for today's demo, I'm going to take a vendor application that we have going on. And right now, it's just a single form. The vendors apply, they upload their catalogs to this form. And then all of the backend processes are kind of very manual. And so we want to switch over to workflow so we can make those automated and also take advantage of the Google Drive connector so that we can send all of those to our Google Drive and have easy access to those catalogs versus trying to find the links, downloading, all of that stuff. But I'm using Google Drive today, but this same process that I'm doing can be applied to any of our storage connectors. So don't worry. If you don't see the one that you're wanting to use, it'll be almost step for step the exact same way to set it up for any of our storage connectors. So I'm just going to create this workflow from scratch to show how you can take those processes you already have and just get them integrated into a brand new workflow. So we'll title this my vendor application, and we'll select that vendor application form that we just saw. There we go. And I already have in that vendor application, since it's already existing, that thank you message and notification email all set up. So I'm going to import those into my workflow here. Now, the one thing I didn't have on that is that Google Drive connector, since it's only available in workflow. So we'll just go ahead and add that connector step right here. And you can see I have the Sharepoint and Google Drive. If you have access to Box or Dropbox, they'll be right here as well, but we're using Google Drive. So I'll go ahead and add that. I can change the description here if I want to. I don't need to, so we're just going to move on to authorization. So I can have this existing authorization to my Google Drive I've got right here, or I can click new authorization, enter in a new name for it, click authorize, it'll open up so I can log into my Google Drive and go from there. We don't need that, so we'll select that and move on to our configuration. If it takes a minute to load, don't worry. It's just your Google Drive connecting to FormAssembly. It could take up to, I've seen as long as just like a minute, just to have that connection between the two. But once it's connected, you'll see this action right here. So these actions are how you tell the Google Drive connector what to do with each file upload you have in your form. So in this vendor application form, I just have the one vendor catalog file upload field. So I'll select that one field. And then I select the destination. I have a vendor catalog folder in my Google Drive. So I selected that. And I'd like to have each of the applications come through as titled subfolders. So I can go in here, click the F, and come in here. I want to have it be the company name. So this will be a dynamic folder name for each one. So it'll come in through company name and catalog. That way I can easily organize and sort all of my files and folders in my Google Drive. Then the last step I want to do here in the Google Drive connector is set a return variable. Now what these return variables do is when you go to add a variable, you can see I can pull an ID or URL. These are fields directly from my Google Drive. So this URL will be that URL directly to my vendor catalog in my Google Drive. So I'm going to click URL, and then I want to pull it into this vendor application form. And when I pull it into that vendor application form, when I go through and add the next steps of my workflow, I can pull and pre-fill that same URL all throughout my workflow. So my respondents later in the workflow, whether that's the vendor that is applying or any of my internal employees, they all have ready access to this same vendor catalog that was uploaded by the original vendor all throughout the process, so they don't have to go searching for that. And what I'm going to do is click the FormAssembly field. You'll see once you come in here, there's a lot of extra metadata fields. You can kind of ignore those. Those are just kind of back-end informations. I can see this catalog URL. That is the one field that I have hidden that is my use. I can kind of tell because it's just the vendor application versus vendor application / vendor catalog, which is the file upload field. So that's kind of one way you can tell which one is that metadata field versus a field that you've created in your form. And that is it to set up the action. If I wanted to have this vendor catalog field set as a repeatable, it'll automatically just do the same for each of those repeated instances of the vendor catalog. It is not, so there's nothing extra I'd have to do if I did, but if you have it, you could easily do that there. Save it, just because I always like to save multiple times whenever I'm working on something. And the next step of the workflow is actually going to be an approval process. This was manual before, but with workflow, I can come in here and have it set. So with this approval process, it'll automatically have a approved or denied step here. So we'll just go ahead and configure. That's going to be for the vendor application. Leave comments and make those comments required. I'm just going to assign it to myself. And I can change any of the notification settings here if I'd like to. I don't need to. And we can continue on with the process. So the denied is pretty simple. if they are denied, I do want to send an email to them, just letting them know their vendor application was denied. And then I can go through and just configure all of those steps. With the fields, I'll put in their email address and the sender email. I'll put as myself again. And from there, I can fill out the rest of the email as needed to just let them know, hey, unfortunately, at this time, your vendor application was denied. And if I have any other processes for that denial process, I can add those there. Now, next for the approve process, I want to add in a form. So with this form, I'm going to configure, and it's just going to be that vendor application continued. I just need some more information from that vendor for after they've submitted their application and it gets approved the first time. Again, everything's the same, so I'll add that in. And with this, the last thing I need to do is set assignment. And rather than a previous form respondent, since I did completely end that flow for that first form, I do need to assign it dynamically with a form field. And I can select just that email field we saw previously from the vendor application field. And now the respondent will automatically receive an email letting them know, hey, your application was approved. Can you continue with the next steps of the process? And they can complete that form. If I'd like to, or if this is going to an internal employee or someone, I can use this pre-fill button and pull in that URL I have going into that vendor application form up here and pull it into this form here. So I can really take advantage and use that URL wherever I need to here in the workflow. But let's go ahead and save, and we can see how that submission process is going to look for the respondent and the approver, and then also see that in my Google Drive. So let's see, company name. Let's do ABC company. And this business type is a software. And business phone, we're just going to use Heidi's information. And she is going to be a brand ambassador today. And I can upload my vendor catalog here and submit that. So this is what Heidi will see when they submit their application. But if we come back to FormAssembly, we can go over here. I can go to my approvals task here. We can see Heidi's submission right here, view it. You can see, okay, I can leave those comments and everything there. And I can also see here is that URL link. This is what any respondents or anywhere that you're sending this link through your workflow, that'll be what is shown so that your employees, respondents, anyone can easily access that Google folder. Now, when I come over to my Google Drive, we can see I have that vendor catalog folder, and it created this ABC company catalog folder where I can open up that catalog and view it all right there. So it really makes it easy to view everything that I need to see for the different respondents and everything. And this will work the same way for any of our storage connectors. And also it helps too with your security, because then only people who are authorized to access both through Google Drive, through FormAssembly, Microsoft, SharePoint, anything that you have your set storage connectors, authorizations, MFAs, SSOs, whatever you use for your security, you can make sure only the people that are accessing that files are accessing those files. So it's really able to be used for a variety of things. And that's all I have, Josh.
Fantastic, Joelle. Thank you. Some quick questions we got during your demo, and I just want to get them answered now. Pratap asks, can they do the same process with Box? I figured I'd let you answer.
Yes. Yeah, you can do the exact same thing with Box. You can set the specific destination folder, set the custom dynamic subfolder name, set the return variables, because that's going to be that URL and ID that Box generates for that file upload. Same for any of the storage connectors.
Fantastic. We'll keep our questions there because I do want to save some for our Q&A, but I just wanted to say that any of those storage connectors are going to operate relatively the same, so you'll be able to do exactly what you need to. Next, very exciting stuff today. We're going to take a look at our Webhook connector, released second half of last year. I think we launched it officially in July, if my memory serves. And our goal with this connector is to offer our users the capability to connect their FormAssembly forms and workflows to any critical system that they use that perhaps we don't yet support with a formalized connector. And just given, the amount of software in the world, having a webhook connector is a great opportunity for FormAssembly users, because we can't keep up with all of these softwares. So if you have an open API in your software that you need to connect data to, you can do that with our webhook connector. Some of the proven integrations that we've been able to build with this are connecting to other CRMs and task management softwares like Monday.com, which I know that Tom is going to be showing today, but also ActiveCampaign and Asana if your teams use those to manage their tasks. We've also been able to send information over to Airtable and MuleSoft database and analytics platforms. And we've proven out some integrations with event registration through Zoom, which I know someone on the call suggested we use because they're having trouble with On24. I'm so sorry. We'll look into the platform's help documentation there. But what we're going to see today is exactly how to set up an integration like that. So I'm going to turn things over to Tom. Tom, take it away.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Josh. So yep, as Josh mentioned, this is very versatile, very flexible. You can use it for many integrations that were not previously possible. So today we're going to go ahead and show an example of connecting to Monday.com. So bear with me. I'm just going to share this screen. Okay, cool. Hopefully you should be good there. If not, let me know otherwise, please, Josh.
Looking good.
So thank you. So here we're going to set the webhook connector up in Workflow. So it's Workflow exclusive, this connector. But the advantage of this is it now supports things like JSON. So previously we could connect to systems that were just form data, but now it can be JSON, it can be raw data, it can be form data, and it can be authorized with OAuth or API token, etc. So today's one, we're going to connect to Monday.com. So I'm going to open this workflow here, and I've just set up the form and the thank you page already, just to speed things up as we're going to go through the configuration of the webhook. And I will show you here, this is Monday's system. I'm going to refresh it just so you can see we have a table of contacts and currently it's empty. The goal here is we're going to have someone fill in a form and that information populate this contacts table. So what we need to do here is we've already got the form and a thank you page. We're going to add a new step. As Joel did, we've got connectors here, a bunch that are now available, and we're going to go for webhook. Again, we can rename this to anything we need to. So for example, Monday.com data push, whatever it is that you want to name it to make it identifiable. And then authorization, as I mentioned before, once you set it up once, you can use the authorization again and again for next ones. We're going to set up a fresh one. So we'll do new authorization, Monday.com demo. And in here, we have the authorization type. So as I mentioned, we support OAuth basic and API key. Monday does support OAuth, but in this demonstration, we're going to go ahead and use an API key. So the details that are needed, you can grab from whichever system you're integrating with. So for example, Monday has pretty good documentation. Most of them do if they do have the API, and it'll tell you what is needed. So in this case, I know that this needs to be called authorization and the API key. You can grab that from, again, your account. I'm aware that I'm showing this now. This will be a test one that will be revoked after this session, so don't panic. So you'll grab that from here. And it needs to be added to the header rather than a query. So this information, again, would all depend on whatever system you're connecting to. In today's use case, it's needed this way. So that's now saved. We can move on to the configuration tab. So similar setup to the file connectors. Yeah.
Can I just interrupt? Sorry. Do you mind minimizing your screen a little bit? It's cutting through halfway through the configuration just to make it a little bit easier for our attendees. Oh, to the other direction.
The other direction.
There we go. Perfect. Thank you, Tom. That way our attendees can see the entire configuration panel.
Thank you very much. All right, so previously, hopefully you saw this. It was within here, we set up everything we needed to for the authorization. Now we're going to configure what we want to do in this webhook step, right? So we're going to be sending a post request to the system, and we need the endpoint URL. Again, you'd grab this from the documentation of the system that you're sending to. So in this instance, for monday.com, it will be this one. That's all we need. There's no custom headers needed in this instance, but if you did need to add one, you've got options here to add certain things. And if it has a specific header name, this is where it will be added. And then we have the body. So here, as mentioned, we now support JSON, so we can send over the JSON form type, data type. We've got form data, URL encoded and raw. Again, we're going to be using JSON. And this is where it can be dynamic and you pull things from the form. So we're able to say a form field and pulling the first name, etc. I already have the query that we're going to be sending that was constructed using the documentation from monday.com. And just to briefly show that, you can see it's sending what was required. And you can see here that we're using the data from the first name field, the last name field, and the email address. So once that's set up, and the phone number, sorry. Once that's set up, that's all you need to do. You can add further actions if you're going to do more steps within this same connector in the flow. And that's it. So we'll click save. Now that that's set up, we should be good to go. So the flow should be that I register my details and this should get pushed into this table. So again, I'll show that this is still empty, no contacts, and we'll go through the workflow. So if this was Mr. James Bond, okay, so we submit the form, we get shown our thank you page, and in the background, it's now moving along the flow and it's sending the information over to monday.com. So you can see it's already been populated. The information has been sent over via the webhook connector. And obviously you can expand this workflow further if you need to then move to Nextflow and then push another piece of data to another system, you can do so. But it just shows that there's a lot more flexibility now in things that we can connect to that was not previously possible. You may have your own proprietary systems in-house that you also want to send to. Again, providing it has an API that can receive post requests with authentication, or even without authentication, as I showed earlier, you can have it set to none if it's just an endpoint, a webhook, or OAuth. So there's various options. It's very flexible. And so hopefully that gives you a glimpse of what you can do. This was just one use case of many. As Josh mentioned, we've proven out a few integrations with some systems that are very popular with our customers, but it's almost unlimited in what you can connect to when it comes to sending data via the webhook connector. So I think that's all I have for now. Josh, I'll hand it back to you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tom. Love these demos. I'm going to save some questions. We've got some really great questions coming in around that connector, and I can't wait to get those over to you. One I'd like to cover right now is that people have asked, and not just about the workflow, or pardon me, the webhook connector, but about the connectors that we saw today. Is there an additional cost? What do they have to do to bring them to their account? And I'll go ahead and answer that question, Tom. These connectors are available as add-ons to your subscription. So if you do want to, bring the webhook connector to your platform to start, building your own integrations, you do need to reach out to our sales team to get that added to your account. And I wanted to make that a little bit easier for you today, rather than have you, have to reach out and schedule yourself. If you would like to talk to someone at our organization about any of the features you saw today, be that, the Google Drive connector, Box, Dropbox, or the webhook connector, or if you need more information about, multi-user plans, if you need to add users to your plans, I wanted to make it super simple. Give me a yes, and I'll have some folks follow up with you. If today is educational for you and you need to think about things a little bit more, or if you were just here to catch up with us, toss me a no, and I'll make sure to not bother you that much, but we will be sending the recording out to you. Another common question, and I'll give just people more time to click on the poll today, is what do these connectors only work on workflow? And the answer is yes. These new connectors that you've seen today are built on the workflow platform. So they're only available inside of your workflows. We have a couple of webinars. Joelle did several last year that are great examples. It is super simple for you to bring your active forms into workflows and build with these new connectors. The form import process is incredibly streamlined. I do encourage you to check out some of our recorded webinars on the website if you need more information about how far workflow has come. But currently these connectors are only available on workflow. I'm going to go ahead and move on from this poll. If you didn't get to answer and ask for follow-up and you need someone to follow up with you, please reach out to our website. We have several links where you can schedule demos. If you have a connection here at FormAssembly, just go ahead and shoot them an email. We'll get you the help that you need. So let's move into some questions. Tom and Joelle, I'm going to bring you both onto the screen. Some really great demos. Really appreciate the work that you both put into building those. And I think the people have some questions. So let's go ahead. I'll start with Sam. Are you able to set up one of the storage connectors at the same time, I believe, same step as using a Salesforce connector? Tom, would you mind taking that, or Joelle? I think both of you are qualified to take that.
Yeah, I can take that one, Tom. So yeah, you can definitely set up a Salesforce connector in the same workflow as the Google Drive. I've done it multiple times. You could set it up to run after like the Google Drive or Microsoft SharePoint or Box or Dropbox, and those return variables that I use today. You can also send those to Salesforce, or you could send them through the Webhook connector. You can use that to take advantage of multiple processes and integrate multiple integrations into one workflow.
Fantastic. And that was a question I saw a couple times. I think that that's really where the power of workflow starts to show itself, because yes, you can run these connectors, essentially at the same time, and you can choose to have one fire off before the next one, but run them essentially at the same step in your workflow. Or you can have conditionals and branches in your workflow and decide, if someone answers this way, I don't want to send them to Salesforce. This is something I only want to store in a Google Sheet. Or, I want to send only files to our storage platform based on answers here. There's a lot of power and control that workflow brings to you. And as we bring more connectors online, you can really automate even more processes that you're, perhaps handling manually now, or you're not handling as fast as you need to, because you'll be able to automate them. It's really powerful stuff. This question, I think, is the best one for Tom. This from Chris. Can you use a get method and pass back information across the Webhook connector to form fields?
Okay, so currently with the Webhook connector, it allows you for pushing data and not pulling data that can be stored. So you will notice, if you do have this on your account, that when you're setting up the Webhook, there is put, patch, post, and get. So we are expecting to expand that to allow to be able to pull information back and use the responses from whatever system it's sending to. Currently, it is only for pushing. So what your use case you're looking for there, where it's coming back with something, and then depending on that, you would use the previous version that's currently available on a form level. But the Webhook, we're hoping to expand on that for sure.
Fantastic. Yes, not yet, but exciting stuff nonetheless. This question from Sam, and I think, Joelle, this would be a good one for you. For the box integration, you stated we can save a form in a specific folder for a company or group. Can we have a specific type of form saved to the same folder for all companies? This might be more of a box-specific question. I'm not sure about this one myself.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I think I kind of know what you're talking about, Sam, you can definitely have it set. So like with the subfolder name that I used, which was the company name catalog, you can change that to be kind of more specific to like each workflow response. So like if I had multiple responses and multiple Google Drive connectors through that one workflow, if I continue to use the same subfolder name with that company alias from the very first name, form, and catalog, it would continue to save to that same folder in my Google Drive. So you can definitely continue to reuse that subfolder alias throughout your workflow and just continue to send the files to that same folder. It's kind of versatile, where you can have it set for response, and you can also change it if you do want it to be still like company name, but you want them to have different. You would just add a little bit more to that same the subfolder name alias like formula, so that you can be like, okay, well, company catalog B, company catalog C, you can change it so that it's kind of a little bit different each time if you want them to be saved to different folders. But if you leave it the same, it would continue to save for that same company to that same subfolder, even if it is a dynamic name in the workflow.
This is a follow-up here, Joelle. It is slightly different. SharePoint connector. Can a user reference a dynamic subfolder within a second SharePoint connector in order to save additional documents to that same dynamic subfolder? There's so many subfolders here. I'm not entirely sure. I hope I described it well.
I'm pretty sure. So like you can set that destination folder. And with mine, that was going to be the vendor catalog folder. So all of my vendor applications go through to that one. And then the subfolder, it is the dynamic. And so that dynamic, essentially what it does when it's actually running is it doesn't look at the alias. It does, okay, I had ABC company. It pulls in ABC company catalog. And it looks in my Google Drive in that vendor catalog folder for ABC company catalog folder. If it exists, it's going to take in and put everything in that ABC catalog folder. If it doesn't exist, then it's going to create one. So you can definitely, if you want to use that same subfolder alias formula for a Google Drive SharePoint box connector and like step 1 and have it be like, okay, I have this conditional, and that's now like 10 steps later in my workflow. And I'm still going to use that same alias formula that I created for the company name catalog. In this one, it will still do reference and be like, okay, ABC catalog, look for that folder. Great, there is a folder existing. So even though it's a dynamic, it's searching for that alias. It'll pull it in and search for that specific folder in your subfolder. And if it doesn't exist, then it will create a new one. Hopefully I explained it well enough.
I'm still lost, but I think that sounded right. This next question, subfolder free. This is for you, Tom. Anandi asks, can we explain about the error handling tab? I think they wanted a little more information on error handling inside of workflow.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, that tab is available on a few of the connectors. What it allows for is if there is an error in the connector, what do you want to do? So you can show a custom error message or direct them to a different part of your workflow. So you could say, if this hits an error, please send them down, the error path, which will send an email. You could then have a following step that sends an email to your admin to say, hey, something's wrong with the connector, check it out. It can send an email to the person filling it out, or have a new form that's just a simple contact form where they can say, hey, this is my contact details. It looks like there was an error. But yes, it allows a little bit more flexibility on error handling in case for any reason, maybe the authorization, you've revoked it because that person's left the company and you forgot to go in there and revoke it. So it helps to catch those sort of errors and have a bit more flexibility.
And we had a question on the same topic asking how a user could identify if there was an issue with a box upload, for instance, and an error handling message might be able to help with that as well. A follow-up here, Tom, on the topic of webhooks is from Jade. Will webhooks work for Tableau? Have you seen anyone build out a Tableau integration with the webhook connector?
So no, currently I have not. Tableau is a bit of a strange one because of the data format that it accepts when sending things via a webhook. It doesn't have a straightforward, if you're going to send from a web form to Tableau, the data type that it needs to ingest. Like it's not expecting a JSON format. So at this moment in time, I have not seen it be compatible with Tableau as it stands with a JSON request.
Okay. No problem. I'm going to try to get 2 more questions and squeeze them in before our quarter till time. This question from Betty, I think, Joelle, you might be able to answer this. What is the limit on file uploads to Box? Do you have that information?
Yes, yeah, I can do that. So the file upload limits, it's going to be more of like a form limitation. So for FormAssembly forms, whether they're an individual form or a form in a workflow, you can only have a max of 35 megabytes per form submission. So what that means is if you have if my catalog today had been That's one catalog, that's one file. If it had been 36, I would have encountered an error when trying to submit the form as a form respondent and would have said, hey, file is too large. I would have known to, okay, I need to either break up the file or decrease the file size to then try to re-upload it. So your respondents will see that if they encounter the 35 megabyte limit. Some plans only have a 30 megabyte limit, but they can be increased to 35 if you need that. And then also there is a limit of 20 files per response. So per form response. So if you have a file form that you have 15 file upload fields, that's okay. You can upload that as long as all of those 15 files do not exceed 35 megabytes, then you're good to go. But as soon as they do, it's limit. But the good thing with workflow is you can actually break those up into different form responses. So it would just then depend on your box limits. So you can have 6, 7, 8 forms, and each of those forms can have a 35 megabyte limit. So then you can have that 5 different times. You can set up multiple box connectors to run for each of those forms. So you're making sure things are getting to box as they're submitted, and you're good to go.
Great. Thank you, Joelle. I have one more question, this one for Tom. When authorizing one of the new connectors, is it locked to the form creator's user account, or can other form creators use that connector once it's added?
Good question. And yes, so for security reasons, that is locked to the user, the person who owns that workflow. Again, imagine I have my own API key, I add it, and then someone was able to jump in there and start making things using my authentication. So at the moment it's locked to whoever owns the workflow and set it up. That's not to say that you cannot share your workflow as a collaborator and have other people adding things to the workflow, but the connection itself is locked to the user who set it up.
Fantastic. That is unfortunately all the questions we'll be able to get to today. I really appreciate our audience for bringing these questions. Always some really good stuff. And Tom and Joelle, I really appreciate your expert answers. Being able to handle these things, well, they would never make a marketing guy do this, but I would never be able to answer some of these questions. I get in over my head pretty quickly, so I appreciate your expertise. Before I send you all off into your daily lives today, just quickly a reminder, in our resource center, you'll find that pre-registration link for FormFest 2025. If you like learning about FormAssembly, that is an event you should not miss. And again, if there's any scheduling conflicts, if you're on vacation in April, I hope you are, but I also hope to see many of you at the conference. You can register for individual sessions, and we'll send you the recording just as we'll send this recording out to you tomorrow. So don't let any scheduling conflicts get in the way. You'll want to get these recordings delivered to your inbox. You'll also find documentation in the Resources Center. And if you'd like to request an upgrade to your plan, to bring workflow to your plan, if you need to add connectors to your plan, please reach out to our team. You can use the links in the Resource Center to do that as well. If you have any other questions, reach out through support. We'll get you answers, and our help documentation is fantastic. The team that does that is always great. Love how well our help center looks. Visit help.formassembly.com to learn more. Before we leave today, I'll give you two an opportunity to say goodbye.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming and for your great questions. They're definitely always a pleasure to answer and help you guys out any way that we can.
Yep, likewise. Thank you all for attending. I hope this was informative, and we look forward to seeing you the next time.
Yep, and I'll add my thanks to the pile. We'll see you at the next webinar. Keep an eye on your inbox. Thank you all. Have a great Thursday.